the next session of today that is an honor to have, probably like addressing what Elizabeth was saying, the involvement of the youths. And we have Melissa with us. Melissa, if you want to introduce yourself and go on to the topic that it's very also on continuity on with what we also addressed at the last session, that is eco-anxiety. So Melissa, the floor is to you.
Thank you so much, Domenico, and thank you for the invitation to this great forum. Shall I share my screen now, or?
Yes, okay, you can. Let
or
me see.
Would you like to run the slides, please?
Okay, just give me one moment.
Thank you.
Yeah. In the meanwhile, if you want to introduce yourself.
Oh, of course. Yeah, thank you. Well, hi, I am Melissa Jiménez Gómez Tagle. I come from Mexico. I am a planetary health scientist currently studying a master's program at Technische Universität München in sustainable resource management. I am hopefully finishing, after all this corona pandemic, this great program. I am also leader of the climate justice group in the health working group of Youngo, which is the youth constituency of the United Nations, children and youth constituency of the United Nations. And well, today I come with you to share something about eco-anxiety and the climate psychology that's behind all this.
Yeah. I know you too.
Sorry. Oh, okay. But first of all, I want to say that I'm an eco-warrior, regardless of all these titles that I've already mentioned. I'm an eco-warrior, and I come to you, next slide, please, to help all these eco-warriors that are my target of today. Because, well, yes, this crisis is starting to affect us, not equally, but it's affecting us. So we need to start targeting what's the problem and finding solutions together. Next slide, please. So according to the National Library of Medicine, worldwide, there is an increase of this ecosystem distress and all these issues that are happening in our environment, and we are seeing it and how it's starting to affect us mentally and existentially, for this matter. Next slide, please. 264 million people right now are affected by depression. This is according to the WHO. And I just want to start with this issue because I would like to make the main core of this presentation health. Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And it's not merely just the absence of the disease, but all these cannot be reached if the environment we live in, it's in chaos. So when one disease elements are absent in this, then we have a state of disease when one of these health elements are absent. And according to the Lancet, planetary health is the human condition and the state of the natural systems in which all society is embedded. With these quantities, I would like to mention that the current corona pandemic has taken the life of around 4,687,000 last time I checked. This has been for the last 2 years, but the consequences of the climate crisis are causing already 250,000 additional deaths per year. And this comes from malnutrition, malaria, diarrhea, heat stress. And let's not forget to mention the 4.3 million deaths per year related to household air pollution, the other 3 million deaths for ambient pollution. So the climate crisis, which is thought to have started since the Industrial Revolution, I think is the real pandemic that's going on. Next slide, please. So what about this new mental pandemic? This mental pandemic caused by the climate caused by us in reverse is causing these mental issues, which are englobed in eco-anxiety, evolves in eco-anger, goes into solastalgia sometimes, and eco-grief. I'm going to explain each of them. The eco-anxiety is this loss of capacity of doing stuff because of distress caused by climate change. When we feel desperate and we feel like we cannot do anything about it. And when we feel anxious, then we start feeling anger, which is becoming more intense. When you say that, yes, my personal activities and my personal decisions might not be enough, maybe not. And that brings us sometimes despair and anxiety and anger. Also, solastalgia, it is this new concept about a mixture of melancholia plus a lack of solace and an intense desolation. It's when we feel like, okay, there's nothing to do, so what do we do? Sometimes I think about the polar bear that is sitting in a very small ice cube, waiting for it to melt. Well, it's kind of sad. It's like a nostalgia that we're having of what we are losing, we're starting to lose. And after this comes the eco-grief, which is the psychological response to loss caused by this environmental destruction. Next slide, please. So we are going to focus today on eco-anxiety. This eco-anxiety is the fear of the environmental damage that is causing this ecological disaster. And all this fear is based on the current and predicted future state of the environment, which is funny because it's caused by all this climate change, which is the main trigger of this. This eco-anxiety is also caused by just seeing all the news, noticing that the environment is not doing very well. And so after knowing all these unfortunate facts, then we start to feel eco-anxious because sometimes we can do stuff, sometimes we cannot. Next slide, please. According to a study by Nature, worldwide, young people are starting to feel this eco-anxiety even stronger. There is this chart where they were surveying about 10,000 young people, showing all these negative feelings that climate change is bringing to them, because they are the ones who are going to be in the future the productive society. So what kind of world are the adults leaving us? So most of them are feeling very worried, sad, afraid, and anxious about this. And next slide, please. And this is kind of more common, becoming more common. I would like to ask anybody here, and please turn on your cameras. Have you felt eco-anxiety? You can raise your hands. Exactly. Most of us who are in this fight for the planet are the ones who are feeling eco-anxiety the most. But not everything is lost here. Next slide, please. We need to find ways to deal with this eco-anxiety. We cannot just live with it and accept it and go on, because this is also affecting our daily lives. Next slide, please. A formula that is given here, it's using this trauma and this grief and mix it a bit with creativity to develop resilience. Resilience for things that maybe might not be in our hands for controlling, but we can develop new ways of responding to this climate crisis together. For example, staying connected while being in this scary environment for the planet. And this would involve getting connected to your network, getting more people, get to know more people that think the same and would like to also collaborate with this climate crisis. Next slide, please. I would like to mention that it is good to recognize that we are vulnerable. Humans are vulnerable. All the planet is vulnerable. It's getting vulnerable more. So we need to recognize that in order for us to evolve. Once we know what we are feeling, then we can develop this resilience, get stronger, and get out of this crisis through adaptation, and also probably by ourselves, not accepting it completely, but trying to make the change we can. Here, there's an interesting point that I would like to bring up. Personal actions versus the great actions that are supposed to be done by governments and by big industries. Shall I stop? Shall I not? The pessimistic thing would be stop, because governments and great industries are the ones responsible for the climate crisis. But me personally, as an eco warrior and as myself, would say, I cannot give up. We cannot give up. There is hope, as Greta Thunberg said, once there's action everywhere. So we are starting to realize that more people are waking up to this. They are starting to recognize the vulnerability human has, the vulnerability nature has. And so we're starting to adapt and to develop new ways to survive. Next slide, please. We need to recognize how we are feeling. And after recognizing this, we need to be compassionate to us. We are humans. We feel. We need to collaborate between us to address how we're feeling. Also, a very good way to honor these feelings would be, for example, campaigning and give everyone permission to be who they are. We cannot, I am against of saying, oh, stop crying because the climate crisis won't stop if you cry. That's true, yeah. But I also think that reflecting on our emotions is a good way to get strength and to get into action. Next slide, please. So, according to another study, 57% of children and young people are distressed by climate change. And 75% of young people feel that the future is frightening. These statistics were made by a study which was conducted by the APA Association. And they are actually wanting to now recognize this eco-anxiety as a diagnostic and statistical mental disorder, which is not yet, but they are starting to think about it, since all these people, all these young people are starting to feel it, are starting to recognize that they're vulnerable to this climate change, and that it's a problem that is increasing. Next slide, please. For example, in the Philippines and India and Brazil, all these percentages of young people are feeling very worried or extremely worried by climate change. The Philippines, India, and Brazil are countries that are highly vulnerable to climate change. Next slide, please. So, yes, all this panorama is horrible. There's so much despair, but no, guys. I would advise to turn all this eco-anxiety, like the formula I presented before, into action. And how can we do that? Next slide, please. We need a plan of action, of course. And the first one would be act. You could, before, thank you. you need to start acting. Presentations or communications or demonstrations could be a good tool to start with it. We cannot give up despite all despair. We need to get together and look for all these local groups that practice environmental activism, informing ourselves from trustworthy sources, and start speaking about it. Next slide. As I said before, we need to build networks with local authorities and with the local community. We need to also think global and act local. This is a very nice phrase by Al Gore, which is, maybe I cannot change the world, I'm thinking about it, but I will change the part that I live in. We can also start changing life laws. It's a bit difficult, it's a bit tricky. For example, walk more instead of using a lot of cars, or use public transportation. This is also a bit tricky because sometimes in some communities, this might not be possible because of insecurity. And this is also another fact that brings up climate injustice, but we will speak about that later. Every action matters, really. Whenever I hear somebody telling me, as I said, that no, the change must come from the outside, I always think that yes, we need a system change, but we are part of the system. So as we are changing, we will change the system. As slowly changes the system, we would get stronger with all these support networks, and then results are gonna come up. Next slide, please. I love this. People got the power, which is the truth. And I would like to share a video from COP25 in Madrid that really, it really got me. It was very emotional, which was all of us young people outside COP screaming that we get the power. Next slide, please. Oh no, the video didn't come. Oh yes, there it is. Oh, can you play it or? Oh well. Let me just tell you that everybody, every nation was there together, with just one single voice saying that the people got the power. We had to tell them how we felt and that this was all stronger than everything else. So yes, together we can change the world. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. Next slide, please. And I would like to recognize these great people who are specialists in psychology and climate anxiety specifically. They are very good contact points, especially Willem Gagnon, because he has a very nice program on eco-anxiety and he makes all these workshops. Gilberto Rueda and Hector Aro are Mexican psychologists who are really into this and are always happy to help anybody who's feeling climate anxiety. And thank you very much.
Thanks a lot to you, Melissa, because it was a wonderful presentation. I really got inspired and several inputs are I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And so,
sorry for the lighting.
no, no worries, no worries. I don't know if there are questions to the presentation of Melissa. I think surely they are because I think that's a topic that sometimes also in the climate action movement is not so addressed, but I think that we have to take the time to reflect on this. So if you want, you can raise your hand and ask. So,
come on, don't be shy.
I will break the ice.
Or you can also like reflect on what you're feeling. That's also a good idea.
Okay. Okay, you can propose. So my feeling now, I just share my feelings, is the feeling of reflection, because sometimes also in the climate action movement, as I said, we are thinking much on the urgency. That's true, as you also stated, but we do not concentrate on our feelings. That's important, because the feelings can tell you the direction. Yeah, we have to move. That's true, but we have to also find the right direction in which to move. If you don't reflect on your feelings, you will not find the direction. So yeah, that's why I think that also I very appreciate on that, because it's also self-reflection on our action as a climate activist and so on.
I cannot agree more with you on that, indeed. In order for us to be able to tackle well the climate crisis, we need to be good ourselves first. We cannot give what we don't have. So we need first stability for this. And I also think that, and maybe I had mentioned that before, but I really like this phrase from Carl Jung, which is the outside is a reflection of the inside. So if we are seeing all this climate crisis, maybe we need to first look at inside ourselves, see what's wrong that is making all these environments so hectic and problematic. And also it would be, for example, the countries who are most affected by the climate crisis, who are the ones who also must have a lot of help from the ones who can provide help, then they would be, for me, the main target, the main focus for also helping and collaborating. They have a lot also of knowledge, and by sharing knowledge and by sharing feelings is also knowledge, then we can go on with this crisis, and hopefully we will beat it. We're beating it. Oh, Domenico, I think you froze. Oh no, we lost Domenico.
I have a question, Melissa, if I may.
Yes, please.
Hi, Melissa. I'm Erin, calling from Naples, Italy.
Hi, Erin.
Hey. Well, I have to say I really appreciated your talk about actual health, and most especially mental health. And I have to say that I do suffer from eco-anxiety. Like I think most of us do anyway. And so what I wanted to ask is, knowing that this has a name, I was not aware. So thank you for enlightening me. What can you suggest to someone that does suffer from eco-anxiety, and how can we feel more at ease with ourselves?
I deal with this also because I have eco-anxiety. And the suggestions that I made in my presentation was, yes, get to action, share your feelings with networks that you have around, build a community. Building community is what would help us. I mean, we are humans, a race that is also in risk of this climate crisis. So as you, there are many other people who feel the same. So I think that, oh, Domenico's back. So I think that speaking out your feelings, it's a good way to start healing. Let me change my lighting. Second thing that I would suggest is getting into action. We are